You know, John, I got into this business at Universal essentially having no idea what I was doing, I guess like everybody. And the second picture I worked on at Universal was called Car Wash. That picture had a hugely successful soundtrack. In fact, the way we ended up in that situation is that a guy came to me, a music manager, with an idea of doing a play that took place in a car wash over a one-day period. And I didn't want to do the play, but I wanted to migrate that to film. And Joel Schumacher started writing a great script. And there were two R&B songs on the radio that I loved. Heard it on the grapevine, and Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Those were my, at that moment in history, those were my favorite songs of that genre. So I found out that Norman Whitfield had been involved in writing and producing and arranging both of those songs. And Norman was just getting out from under one of Berry Gordy's famous 20-year contracts. You may remember those. And so I got Norman on the phone and said, look, would you write an original score for a musical even though it's not a musical? I said, I don't know how to make a musical. I said, great, neither do I, so we're in good shape, so get over here. So Norman took a $25,000 advance, went to Pasadena, found 3 girls who were singing in a church choir, called them Rose Royce, dragged them into the old Studio B over here at Universal, and started recording the music before we finished the script. What he was working from was a script outline that told him what the scenes were and essentially what the main characters would do to each other. Before we shot the movie, we had the music finished. So I didn't know any better. I just didn't. And so now everybody goes, well, that's backwards, but we didn't know. So we took the tracks we had and we took them to the set. And every time we'd shoot a scene, before we did a take, we'd shoot the scene with the music playing loud so that everybody could hear it. Actors could get in the groove, people would understand. Then we shut the music off and do the take. Worked out all right. The picture cost us $1.8 million to make. The picture did about $20 million domestic, which in those days was a huge profit margin for the company. The soundtrack did $22 million on its own. It was a double platinum album. I was floored. I had no idea. I was floored. After that experience, how can you not take music seriously relative to film? And so, while every film we make certainly doesn't have a lot of depth in music, most of them do. And over the years, we've had really good experiences with the relationship between the power of a released and promoted film, the power of radio, the power of record or CD marketing, and the ultimate relationship that all of this has to pop culture. So that if you're around when we made Smokey and the Bandit, then in that country and western groove, you could have a kind of CB song, Jerry Reed kind of thing going on, and you'd be in a truck stop, or you'd be at the Varsity Drive-In in Atlanta, or some appropriate redneck hangout, and you'd hear all of the language and slogans and music from your movie 2 weeks before it opened, in the air. By the way, the best leading indicator, Car Wash. Before that movie opened, we had a preview at the National Theater on Times Square in New York. I went to New York, I picked up the producer and the director at the plaza. I was waiting for them to come down. I'm sitting in a limo, and a hooker comes over and knocks on the window. Hey, how you doing? I said, how are you doing? She said, I'm fine. I'm going to hang out here for the rest of the summer, and I'm going to go to Florida. And I said, great. She said, what are you guys doing? I said, well, I'm waiting for these guys. We're going to go to see this picture called Car Wash. We're going to preview it over here on Times Square. And she said, Car Wash, Car Wash. I said, hey, honey, that's that song I heard on the radio. That thing is bitchin'. I rolled the window up and I thought, you know what? We're done. I mean, if the hooker on the corner in New York already knows that the song is cool, then the kind of street cred necessary to make something pop in the culture was well on the way. So the rules for me are always work with people that are smarter than you are. It's easy for me to do. Find people who have true creative depth. put them together, and push the edge a little bit. It's very simple. No, it wasn't. It might have happened. There had been films that by accident had huge songs that transmitted to radio. High Noon had Don't Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. It had been a big breakout song. Thunder Road had a song that broke out in the country charts. But nobody had done that before the movie came out. By the time Car Wash was released, I had 3 singles in rotation, 2 in the top 10. As time went on, of course, that world became more sophisticated. Program directors took over from disc jockeys. As you know, in that 70s, you could still go to a DJ. You could find someone who had a profile in their area, but the consolidation of the radio stations meant that the program director was now the dude, not the DJ, and it meant that stations, of course, were part of networks, and many of these local stations, of course, had no local identity at all. They were just program pieces, and so it became harder and harder to work your way in. Years later, I was doing a picture called Where the Buffalo Roam, Billy Murray doing a kind of Hunter Thompson story, and I had wanted for a long time to work with Neil Young, and we finally talked Neil into recording Home on the Range, and with a guitar and nothing else, just an a cappella version of Home on the Range, and it was beautiful, just beautiful. But I couldn't figure out how to get any airplay. How do you get Home on the Range on the air, So one of my guys said, well, I was saying, let's send this out. Let's get a single out to all these program directors. And the guy said, no, it's not ready. And they threw it on my desk, and it had a paper cover on it that said, test pressing, do not air.
That sounds right.
And I said, send it out. And I said, what are you doing? I said, no. Send it out, just like this. If we send out 3,000 of these, half of them will get played instantly. And so that's what we did. And, even the program directors couldn't resist the idea of tweaking the record company's tail. And so anyway, we've just had a great time on the music side. It's been incredibly helpful to us. We don't make a movie at all without charting the music out very carefully to begin with. It's why in the company things like music publishing are important to us. It's why we work with artists who are inventive, and we really look for them. Sometimes they're unknown, sometimes they're combinations of unknown and really skilled. In the picture we just finished in New Mexico, called Dream It Out Loud, which stars Anna Sophia Robb and Caden Boyd, 2 12-year-old kids. It also stars Val Kilmer, Heather Graham, Laura Flynn Boyle, Matthew Modine, and Dylan McDermott. It's a great cast. It's a really cool movie. 2 things about that movie. Glenn Ballard did the score for the picture. Stunning, Academy Award nominee, guy who wrote, produced, and put out Jagged Little Pill. There's a lot of landmark work in Glenn's repertoire. He found an artist named Lisi, girl nobody's ever heard of. Girl's 18 years old. She sings the songs in the movie. She's fabulous. Now, she was unsigned. She was just somebody Glenn found. Now she's signed. Now she's got an album coming out. Now they're after us to pull the songs out of the movie to put on the album to cross-plug. Now, Anna Sophia Robb, the actress, was talked into singing one song in an appearance on the Disney Channel. She's 12. She's actually now 14. She sang that song. It became the Disney Channel's biggest song of the year on their download service. So they said, you've got to do a second song. The second song became the biggest song in Disney Channel's history. So now we have Anna Sophia Robb and Lisi doing duets. We're back in the studio, redoing a couple of the songs so that we blend all of that together. Now, it's interesting and adventurous musically. It's also unbelievably good for the cross-promotion of the picture on every level. And it makes the experience of seeing the movie just much cooler, especially for the audience that film's designed for. It's a kind of My Girl movie, it's for a tweener audience. And there's not a 15-year-old girl in America who doesn't know all about Anna Sophia Robb, you know.
That is incredible.
So we work on it. Doesn't mean we're always right, by the way. We screw it up as often as we hit it, but we work on it. There are people out there who really do it. But what happens to music and film all too frequently is this. Films are kind of hard to make, actually, much as I'm cavalier about it. They're a lot of damn work. Financing's complicated. The execution of the work itself is complicated. And if you make a good movie, it's sort of a miracle every time. And along the way, people run out of energy, and they run out of money, and they run out of focus. And so you get to the end of the movie, and most people leave soundtrack, score, musical issues to the very last minute. It's death. You know, you do that, you end up in a spot where you're jammed in a corner, you've got a delivery date, you're out of money, you can't do much, you just do what you can, and that's all too often what happens. So we do it the other way. I'm talking to the composer at the same time I'm talking to the writer.